Welcome. You can rest here now, without needing to prepare for anything, without needing to stay attentive or alert. There is nothing you need to follow closely and nothing you need to remember. This space is not asking you to understand or to imagine clearly. It is simply a place where you are allowed to remain exactly as you are, letting the body soften in its own time and letting the mind loosen without instruction. Even if thoughts are still present, even if sleep feels distant, you are already in the right place. Tonight, we remain within a single, quiet field that does not move forward. We are with the birth of Jesus, not as a story unfolding step by step, not as a sequence of events, but as a continuous stillness that has always been present. Prophecy and fulfillment are not separated here. Wait-in and arrival are not different moments. Everything exists together in the same gentle calm, where time no longer presses and nothing needs to happen next. This is not the noise of angels or the movement of travelers. This is the long hush that surrounds everything before and after words are spoken. Ancient promises rest here without urgency. Bethlehem rests here without crowd or activity. The night is not dramatic. It is soft and ordinary. The air is still. The world is quiet enough that nothing needs to be emphasized. You are not being asked to picture scenes clearly or to follow a narrative. Images, if they appear, can remain blurred and distant, like light behind closed eyes. A sense of warmth, a sense of shelter, a sense of quiet expectancy may drift through without needing to be named. Nothing here requires focus. Nothing here demands belief or effort. You are simply resting within a presence that has been steady long before this moment and remains steady now. Jesus is present here not as a figure to be introduced, not as a child newly arrived, but as a calm presence already resting within the world. There is no urgency in his arrival. There is no announcement that needs to be heard. His presence does not interrupt the night. It does not draw attention to itself. It simply remains, gentle and human, as though it has always been here. Your body can settle without instruction. There is no need to adjust posture or breathing. Support is already present. Muscles can soften or remain as they are. Breath continues on its own, quiet and unremarkable. The nervous system does not need to stay alert. Nothing here requires readiness. Thoughts may come and go, and that is allowed. They do not need to be followed or resolved. Like distant echoes, they can pass through the stillness without leaving a trace. Even drifting away is allowed. Even forgetting is allowed. This space does not require you to stay awake in order to hold you. If you are familiar with this place and wish to support it by liking or subscribing, you may do so now, gently, without breaking the calm. Nothing else will be asked of you after this moment. From here on, there will be no reminders, no calls back to attention, no signals that something new is beginning. We remain within the quiet that holds prophecy in Bethlehem together, within a night that does not move forward, within a presence that does not need to be announced. Time softens, awareness begins to loosen, and everything is already at rest. Nothing shifts as you remain here, and there is no sense of beginning something new. The quiet that has already settled does not deepen or change its character. It simply remains, allowing the mind to ease without being guided toward any outcome. There is no need to follow what is being said, and no need to hold the theme in focus. Prophecy and Bethlehem continue to rest together in the background, not as ideas to consider, but as a single, steady presence that does not require attention. The mind can begin to loosen its habitual grip without effort. Thoughts may still appear, softly and without urgency, but they do not need to be completed. They do not need to be organized or resolved. Like distant impressions, they can drift through and fade without consequence. Beneath them, something quieter remains, something that does not think or plan, something that is content to remain exactly as it is. The long waiting that once surrounded the promise does not feel like waiting here. It feels like stillness that has always existed. The sense of time softens, losing its edges, no longer separating before from after. Bethlehem is not approached. It is not arrived at. It It simply rests within the same calm field, ordinary and unremarkable, without movement or activity that would require awareness to follow. Jesus remains present within this quiet, not as an event, and not as a moment in history. He is not being introduced or brought into the world in a way that interrupts the stillness. His presence does not demand notice. It does not call for recognition. It simply remains gentle and human, as though the world has always held him in this way. As awareness stays here, it may begin to feel less centered, less gathered behind the eyes or in thought. Attention can soften at the edges, spreading gently without direction. There is no need to monitor this softening. The mind does not need to check whether it is slowing correctly. It can rest beneath the words, beneath the theme, beneath the sense of listening itself. The body continues to be supported without instruction. There is no need to adjust position or notice comfort. Sensations can remain faint or fade entirely into the background. Breath continues quietly, without becoming something to follow. The nervous system does not need to stay alert. Nothing here requires readiness or response. The quiet surrounding the birth remains undisturbed. There is no announcement, no sound that breaks the night. Ancient promise and gentle arrival coexist without tension. And within this shared stillness, the mind can continue to slow on its own, releasing the habit of trekking, releasing the need to stay aware, as everything remains exactly as it is, without movement, without emphasis, without any sense that something else is about to begin. Nothing changes as this slowing continues, and there is no sense of moving into a different phase. The same quiet holds everything, steady and unmarked, allowing the mind to release its usual patterns without needing to be guided or corrected. There is no need to notice that the mind is slowing, and no need to evaluate how far it has softened. Even the habit of observing the process can fade, leaving only a gentle, unfocused awareness that does not require attention to remain intact. Thoughts may still arise in fragments, incomplete and light, without forming full ideas. They do not need to be followed to their end. They do not need to be pushed away like distant echoes. They can pass through the stillness and dissolve without leaving any trace behind. Beneath these surface movements, something quieter remains unchanged, something that does not participate in thinking at all, and that quiet layer does not need to be accessed or understood. The theme of birth rests here without unfolding. Prophecy does not move toward fulfillment, and Bethlehem does not come closer. The long promise and the gentle arrival exist together in the same calm field. Without sequence and without direction, there is no journey to follow and no destination to reach. Everything that needs to be present already is resting quietly without emphasis. Jesus remains within this stillness, not as a point of focus and not as an image to hold. His presence does not draw attention inward or outward. It does not become clearer as awareness softens, and it does not fade when attention drifts. He simply remains gentle and human, steady within the same quiet that holds everything else. Awareness may continue to loosen, becoming less centralized, less tied to listening or meaning. The sense of being a listener can soften until it feels optional. Words may pass as rhythm rather than content, or they may recede into the background entirely. There is no need to stay connected to them. Nothing is lost when attention drifts away. The body remains supported without instruction. Muscles do not need to relax further or hold themselves in place. Sensations can remain faint or disappear from awareness altogether. Breath continues quietly, without pattern or depth needing to be noticed. The nervous system can continue settling simply because nothing interrupts it. The night surrounding Bethlehem remains quiet and ordinary. There is no movement, no gathering, no sound that requires awareness. Ancient promise and gentle presence remain together without tension. And within this unchanging calm, the mind can continue slowing on its own, releasing the need to stay awake or engaged, as everything remains exactly as it is, without progression, without emphasis, without any sense that something else is meant to happen next. The quiet remains exactly as it has been, without altering its quality or drawing attention to itself. and rest does not take on clearer shape or depth as time passes. It is already fully present, steady and sufficient, without needing to be felt as rest in order to function as such. There is no moment of settling in, no subtle drop into comfort that needs to be noticed. Rest here is not something that happens to the body or the mind. It is simply the absence of anything that would require effort, the absence of anything that would need to be managed or held together. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together continues to feel ordinary and still, without atmosphere shifting or meaning intensifying. It does not glow with significance, and it does not carry a sense of expectation. It is simply a night like any other, quiet enough that nothing presses forward. The long promise that once stretched across generations does not feel like a promise here. It feels like a calm presence that has always been woven into the world, steady enough that time no longer separates what was awaited from what is present. Jesus remains within this resting state, not as an arrival that changes the night, and not as a fulfillment that completes something. His presence does not interrupt the stillness, and it does not draw focus. There is no sense of movement or activity surrounding him. He simply rests within the world as it already is, gentle and human, without emphasis or declaration. His presence does not need to be recognized to remain steady. It does not become clear as awareness softens, and it does not fade when attention drifts. The body continues to be supported without instruction or supervision. There is no need to check posture, comfort, or alignment. The sense of physical form can soften gently, without dissolving and without needing to be maintained. Sensations may remain faint, diffuse, or absent from awareness altogether. Muscles do not need to relax further, and they do not need to remain engaged. They can stay exactly as they are, supported without effort or attention. Breath continues quietly, without becoming an object of focus or regulation. It does not signal calm, depth, or rest. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without guidance. The nervous system does not need to stay alert. Nothing here requires readiness or response. Everything that must continue does so naturally, without awareness overseeing it. Awareness itself can remain soft and loosely gathered, or it can thin further without consequence. The sense of being a listener does not need to stay intact. Words may pass through awareness as rhythm without meaning, or they may fade almost entirely into the background. There is no need to follow them. Nothing important depends on staying connected to sound or language. The resting state does not deepen, progress, or move toward anything else. It remains evenly present, without center and without edge. Prophecy and Bethlehem continued to coexist within the same calm field, without sequence or direction, without anticipation or arrival. And within this unchanging stillness, rest continues quietly, without effort, without emphasis, without any sense that something new is meant to happen next. Nothing shifts as this resting state continues, and there is no sense that the body or mind has moved into something more settled or more complete. Rest does not accumulate here, and it does not deepen in layers. It remains even and unmarked, present without needing to be felt as comfort or ease. There is no contrast that would make this state stand out. It simply continues as the absence of demand, the absence of any need to hold awareness in place or to maintain attention. The quiet night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains unchanged, without atmosphere thickening or thinning. It does not become warmer or darker. It does not gather meaning or symbolism. It simply remains ordinary and still, a night in which nothing presses forward. The sense of waiting that once surrounded the promise no longer has shaped here. It does not feel like anticipation or delay. It feels like a steady calm that has always been present, wide enough that time no longer separates promise from presence. Jesus remains within this resting state, not as a moment that completes something and not as a presence that alters the environment. His presence does not require acknowledgement. It does not draw attention inward or outward. He remains gentle and human, resting within the same stillness as everything else, without emphasis or distinction. There is no sense of movement toward him or away from him. He simply remains, unchanged as awareness softens or drifts. The body continues to be supported without any need for supervision. Sensations can remain faint, blurred, or entirely absent from awareness. The sense of physical boundaries does not need to be clear. It can soften gently without muscles do not need to relax further, and they do not need to hold themselves ready. Support remains present regardless of whether it is noticed or forgotten. Breath continues quietly, without rhythm becoming something to follow. It does not signal calm or depth. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without guidance. The nervous system does not need to remain alert. There are no cues here that would require readiness or response. Everything that needs to continue does so naturally, without attention overseeing it. Awareness may continue to loosen, becoming less centralized and less tied to listening. The sense of being a listener can fade until it feels optional. Words may pass as soft sound without meaning, or they may recede into the background entirely. There is no need to remain connected to them. Nothing is lost when attention drifts or thins. The resting state remains exactly as it is, without progression and without direction. It does not move toward anything else. Prophecy and Bethlehem continue to rest together within the same calm field, without sequence or movement, without approach or arrival. And within this unchanging stillness, rest continues quietly, without effort, without emphasis, without any sense that something new is about to begin. The resting state continues without announcing itself, and there is no sense that anything is shifted into a deeper or quieter form. Rest does not become heavier or more complete. It does not settle further into the body or spread more widely through the mind. It simply remains as it has been, steady and sufficient, without requiring attention or recognition. There is no internal marker that would suggest progress or movement. Everything stays exactly where it is, without effort. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains unchanged, ordinary and still. It does not grow more intimate or more distant. It does not gather emotion or meaning. It simply remains a quiet night, wide enough that nothing presses forward. The promise that once stretched across time no longer carries a sense of anticipation. It rests here as part of the same calm field, indistinguishable from the present moment, without direction or sequence. Jesus remains present within this resting state, not as a point of focus and not as a presence that alters the atmosphere. His presence does not draw attention or invite reflection. It does not become clearer as awareness softens, and it does not fade as attention drifts. He remains gentle and human, resting within the same stillness as everything else, without emphasis or distinction. There is no need to approach him or to hold him in mind. He simply remains. The body continues to be supported without instruction. Sensations may be faint or absent, and there is no need to bring them back into awareness. The sense of physical form can soften further, without dissolving and without requiring definition. Muscles do not need to relax more deeply, and they do not need to remain engaged. They can remain neutral, supported without effort or supervision. Breath continues quietly, without becoming a point of reference. It does not signal calm or depth. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without guidance. The nervous system does not need to remain alert. There are no signals here that would require readiness or response. Everything that must continue does so on its own, without awareness overseeing it. Awareness may thin further, becoming less attached to sound or meaning. The sense of being a listener can soften until it no longer feels necessary. Words may pass through awareness as gentle rhythm without content, or they may fade almost entirely. There is no need to stay connected to them. Nothing is lost when attention drifts or disappears. The resting state does not change or move toward anything else. It remains even and unmarked, without center and without edge. Prophecy and Bethlehem continue to rest together within the same calm field, without approach or arrival, and within this unchanging stillness, rest continues quietly, without effort, without emphasis, without any sense that something new is meant to follow. Nothing signals completion as this resting state continues, and there is no sense of arriving at a fuller or more settled form of rest. It does not conclude itself, or shift into something else. It remains open and even, present without boundary or emphasis, without requiring awareness to notice or confirm it. Rest here is not something that accumulates or deepens. It simply continues as the absence of demand, the absence of any need to hold attention together or to remain oriented to what is happening. The quiet night that holds prophecy in Bethlehem together remains unchanged, ordinary and still. It does not grow more meaningful or more intimate. It does not gather emotion or symbolism. It simply remains a quiet night, wide enough that nothing presses forward. The promise that once stretched across generations does not move toward fulfillment here. It rests as part of the same calm field, without direction, without sequence, without any sense of approach or arrival. Jesus remains present within this resting state, not as a moment that completes something and not as a presence that alters the stillness. His presence does not require recognition or attention. It does not draw the mind inward or outward. He remains gentle and human, resting within the same quiet as everything else. Without emphasis or distinction, there is no sense of movement toward him or away from him. He simply remains, unchanged as awareness softens or fades. The body continues to be supported without instruction or supervision. Sensations may be entirely absent from awareness, or they may exist only as indistinct impressions that do not form experience. The sense of physical form does not need to be maintained. Boundaries can soften beyond relevance without dissolving. Muscles do not need to relax further, and they do not need to remain engaged. Support remains present regardless of whether it is noticed or forgotten. Breath continues quietly, without rhythm becoming something to follow. It does not signal calm, depth, or rest. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without guidance. The nervous system does not need to remain alert. There are no cues here that would require readiness or response. Everything that must continue does so naturally, without awareness overseeing it. Awareness may thin to the point where the sense of listening becomes faint or optional. Words can pass through awareness without forming meaning, or they can fade into the background entirely. There is no need to remain connected to sound or language. Nothing is lost when attention drifts or disappears. The resting state does not prepare for anything else. It does not transition or resolve. It simply continues, unchanged and unmarked, allowing prophecy in Bethlehem to remain together within the same quiet field, without progression, without emphasis, without any indication that something new is meant to begin. Nothing shifts as this sense of safety quietly continues, and there's no moment where holding announces itself as something new. It does not arrive as reassurance, and it does not form as protection in response to danger. It is already present, steady and unremarkable, woven into the same stillness that has been here all along. Safety here is not something that needs to be felt. It exists simply because nothing threatens, nothing presses in, and nothing requires readiness or defense. The night that holds prophecy in Bethlehem together remains open and calm. It does not close around the body, and it does not stretch outward in a way that feels exposed. It simply remains, wide enough to hold everything without tension. There are no sudden sounds, no movements that would invite alertness, because nothing intrudes. The sense of being held does not need to be reinforced. It remains quietly, without drawing attention to itself. Jesus remains present within this same space, unchanged and gentle. His presence does not stand guard or watch over. It does not imply danger by offering protection. He simply rests here, human and steady. And that steadiness itself removes the need for vigilance. There is no alertness in him, no readiness to respond. He is not anticipating anything. He remains at ease within the same quiet that surrounds everything else. The body can continue to rest without checking for support. There is no need to notice where holding comes from or how it is maintained. Weight can remain diffused or barely perceived at all. Muscles do not need to brace or prepare. Even long-held patterns of tension can soften quietly when they are no longer monitored. There is no need to observe these changes. They do not mark progress or depth. Breath continues quietly, without becoming a signal to follow. It does not indicate calm or safety. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without instruction. The nervous system does not need to stay alert. There are no cues here that would require readiness or response. Everything that needs to continue does so naturally, without awareness overseeing it. Awareness may remain soft and lightly present, or it may thin further without consequence. The sense of being a listener does not need to stay intact. Words can pass as gentle sound without meaning, or they can fade into the background entirely. Safety does not depend on attention. It remains intact even as awareness loosens and drifts. The sense of holding does not deepen or tighten. It simply remains evenly present, without center and without edge. Prophecy and Bethlehem continue to rest together within the same calm field, without sequence or movement. And within this unchanging stillness, safety and holding continue quietly, without effort, without emphasis, without any sense that something else is about to begin. Nothing alters as this sense of holding continues, and there is no need for it to become stronger or more noticeable. Safety does not deepen here, and it does not gather itself into reassurance. It remains evenly present, quiet and sufficient, without requiring awareness to confirm it. There is no impulse to check whether everything is still all right, because nothing here suggests that it might not be. The stillness itself carries that knowing, allowing awareness to remain loose and unguarded. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains unchanged, open and calm. It does not surround the body in a way that feels enclosing, and it does not stretch outward in a way that feels exposed. It simply remains wide and steady, without edges that need to be tested. There are no distant sounds to interpret, no movements to follow, because nothing presses in, nothing needs to be watched. Jesus remains present within this same quiet, not as a protector standing watch, and not as a presence that implies danger. He does not guard the space. He rests within it, human and at ease. And that ease removes the need for vigilance. There is no alertness in his posture, no readiness to respond. He's not anticipating anything. He simply remains steady within the same stillness that holds everything else. The body continues to be supported without needing to sense how. There is no requirement to notice weight, contact, or position. Muscles do not need to brace or adjust. They can remain neutral, supported without effort or attention. Even subtle tensions can ease quietly when they are no longer reinforced by monitoring. There is no need to observe these changes. Support does not depend on awareness. Breath continues quietly, without becoming something to follow or regulate. It does not signal calm or safety. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without guidance. The nervous system does not need to remain alert. There are no cues here that would require readiness or response. Everything that needs to continue does so naturally, without awareness overseeing it. Awareness may soften further, becoming less centered and less attached to listening. The sense of being a listener can blur, becoming optional rather than necessary. Words may pass through awareness as gentle sound without meaning, or they may fade into the background entirely. Safety does not depend on attention. It remains intact, even as awareness loosens or drifts away. Holding here does not tighten or close in. It remains open and even, without center and without edge. Prophecy and Bethlehem continue to rest together within the same calm field, without sequence or movement. And within this unchanging stillness, safety and holding continue quietly, without effort, without emphasis, without any sense that something else is meant to follow. The sense of safety continues without tightening or loosening, and there is no feeling of being drawn inward or enclosed. Holding does not form as a boundary around awareness. It remains subtle, almost indistinguishable from the stillness itself, allowing everything to remain without needing to be supported actively. There is no moment where safety needs to be confirmed or reinforced. It is already present, quietly sufficient, existing simply because nothing here requires defense or readiness. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains open and calm, unchanged in tone or texture. It does not signal shelter, and it does not suggest exposure. It simply remains steady enough that nothing within it needs to protect itself. There are no shifts in sound or light that would invite attention, because nothing stands out. Nothing needs to be watched. Awareness can remain soft and unguarded, resting without effort. Jesus remains present within this same quiet, not acting as a guardian and not offering reassurance through words or gesture. His presence does not imply risk by providing protection. He rests within the night as a place that does not threaten, human and at ease. There is no alertness in him, no posture of vigilance. He is not anticipating interruption or change. He simply remains, and that steadiness allows everything else to remain as well. The body continues to be held without needing to sense how it is supported. Weight may feel diffuse or barely perceived at all. The sense of physical boundaries can soften gently, without dissolving and without creating uncertainty. Muscles do not need to stay ready or to release deliberately. They can remain neutral, supported without attention. Even subtle patterns of tension can ease quietly when they're no longer monitored. Breath continues on its own, quiet and unremarkable. It does not signal calm or safety. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without guidance. The nervous system does not need to remain alert. There are no cues here that would require response. Everything that must continue does so naturally, without awareness overseeing it. Awareness itself may thin further, becoming less centered and less attached to listening. The sense of being a listener can soften until it no longer feels necessary. Words may pass through awareness as gentle sound without forming meaning, or they may fade into the background entirely. Safety does not depend on attention. It remains intact even as awareness loosens and drifts. Holding here does not deepen or intensify. It remains open and even, without center and without edge. Prophecy and Bethlehem continue to rest together within the same calm field, without sequence or movement. And within this unchanging stillness, safety and holding continue quietly, without effort, without emphasis, without any sense that something else is about to begin. Nothing marks a completion as this sense of holding continues, and there is no feeling of arriving at a fuller or more secure state. Safety does not conclude itself or settle into something more defined. It remains open and evenly present, without boundary or emphasis, without requiring awareness to notice or confirm it. There is no need to remain oriented in order to feel held. Even as awareness softens or thins, the sense of safety remains unchanged, steady and sufficient. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together stays exactly as it has been, quiet and ordinary. It does not draw closer, and it does not recede. It does not become warmer or darker. It simply remains, wide enough to hold everything without pressure. There are no signals here that would invite vigilance, because nothing presses in, nothing needs to be guarded against. The environment itself does not ask for attention or response. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, unchanged and gentle. His presence does not stand to watch or offer reassurance. It does not imply danger by providing protection. He simply rests here, human and calm. Without alertness, there is no readiness in him, no anticipation of change. His ease does not need to be shared or mirrored. It simply remains, and that steadiness allows everything else to remain as well. The body continues to be supported without instruction. Sensations may be faint, diffuse, or absent from awareness entirely. The sense of physical form does not need to be maintained. Boundaries can soften beyond relevance without dissolving. Muscles do not need to brace or release. They can remain neutral, supported without effort or supervision. Support does not depend on perception. Breath continues quietly, without rhythm becoming something to follow. It does not signal calm or safety, it simply continues, steady and sufficient, without guidance. The nervous system does not need to remain alert. There are no cues here that would require readiness or response. Everything that must continue does so naturally, without awareness overseeing it. Awareness may thin further, becoming less attached to sound or meaning. The sense of being a listener can fade without consequence. Words can pass through awareness without forming meaning, or they can recede into the background entirely. Safety does not depend on attention. It remains intact even as awareness loosens or disappears. The sense of holding does not prepare for anything else. It does not transition or resolve. It simply continues, open and unmarked, allowing prophecy and Bethlehem to rest together within the same calm field, without progression, without emphasis, without any indication that something new is meant to begin. Nothing shifts as this sense of peace quietly continues, and there is no moment where dwelling announces itself as something newly entered. Peace does not arrive as relief, and it does not come from something having ended. It is already present, woven gently into the same stillness that has been holding everything all along. Dwelling here does not feel like staying instead of leaving. It feels like the idea of leaving has quietly fallen away, without needing to be noticed. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains unchanged, calm and ordinary. It does not become brighter or more intimate. It does not gather meaning or emotion. It simply remains steady enough that nothing presses forward. There is no sense of movement toward fulfillment, and no sense of arrival into completion. Everything exists together in the same quiet field, without direction and without urgency. Jesus remains present within this peace, not as a source of calm and not as a focus for attention. His presence does not produce peace, and it does not deepen it. He simply rests within it, gentle and human, as though peace were the natural condition when nothing is being resisted. There is no posture of dwelling in him, no effort to remain. He simply is, unchanged by awareness or time. The body can continue resting without any need to adjust or respond. Sensations may remain faint or indistinct. The sense of physical form does not need to be maintained. Muscles do not need to relax further, and they do not need to remain engaged. Support remains present without being checked or confirmed. Nothing here requires readiness or response. Breath continues quietly, without becoming a signal or a focus. It does not mark calm or depth. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without guidance. The nervous system does not need to remain alert. There are no cues here that would invite vigilance. Everything that needs to continue does so naturally, without awareness. Overseeing it, awareness may soften further, becoming less centered and less attached to listening. The sense of being a listener can blur until it feels optional. Words may pass through awareness as gentle sound without meaning, or they may fade into the background entirely. There is no need to remain connected to them. Nothing is lost when attention drifts or thins. Peace here does not deepen or spread. It simply remains evenly present, without center and without edge. Dwelling does not move toward anything else. Prophecy and Bethlehem continue to rest together within the same calm field, without sequence or movement. And within this unchanging stillness, peace and dwelling continue quietly, without effort, without emphasis, without any sense that something new is about to begin. The dwelling continues without becoming more defined, and peace does not gather itself into something that needs to be felt or named. It does not settle further into the body, and it does not rise into awareness as a recognizable state. It remains even and unmarked, present without contrast, without center, without edge. There is no sense of having arrived somewhere and no sense of remaining behind. Dwelling here does not imply staying. It implies that movement is no longer relevant. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains unchanged, quiet and ordinary. It does not carry anticipation, and it does not hold completion. It simply remains, wide enough that nothing presses forward and nothing pulls away. The long promise does not lean toward fulfillment here. It rests within the same calm field, neither approaching nor receding, without sequence or direction. Jesus remains present within this peace, not as a presence that creates calm, and not as a focus that draws attention. He does not embody peace as something to be observed or entered. He simply rests within it, gentle and human, without effort or intention. There is no sense of him dwelling deliberately. He remains because remaining requires nothing. His presence does not change as awareness softens or drifts. It does not become clearer or fade away. It simply remains. The body continues to be supported without instruction. Sensations may soften further, becoming indistinct or absent from awareness altogether. The sense of physical form does not need to be held together. Boundaries can blur gently without dissolving. Muscles do not need to relax more deeply, and they do not need to remain engaged. Support does not depend on perception. The body remains held, even when awareness no longer checks on it. Breath continues quietly, without rhythm becoming something to follow. It does not signal calm or depth. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without guidance. The nervous system does not need to remain alert. Nothing here requires readiness or response. Everything that must continue does so naturally, without awareness overseeing it. Awareness itself may thin further, becoming less centered and less tied to listening. The sense of being present does not need to stay intact. Words may pass through awareness as gentle sound without meaning, or they may fade almost entirely. There is no need to remain connected to them. Peace does not depend on attention or clarity. Dwelling does not move toward completion or resolution. It does not prepare for something else to begin. It simply continues, unchanged and unmarked, allowing prophecy in Bethlehem to remain together within the same quiet field, without progression, without emphasis, without any indication that something new is meant to follow. Nothing gathers itself into clarity as this dwelling continues, and peace does not take on a shape that could be identified or remembered. It does not become quieter, and it does not become more complete. It remains evenly present, diffused through everything without center or edge. There is no internal sense that this state has stabilized or settled further, because there is nothing here that needs stabilization. Peace does not depend on awareness holding it in place. It remains quietly on its own, unchanged whether it is noticed or forgotten. The night that holds prophecy in Bethlehem together remains exactly as it has been, calm and unremarkable. It does not invite reflection, and it does not carry expectation. It is simply a night wide enough that nothing presses forward. The promise that once stretched across time does not lean toward fulfillment here. It rests within the same quiet field, neither waiting nor arriving, without direction or movement. Time does not separate what was spoken from what is present. Everything exists together without sequence. Jesus remains present within this dwelling, not as a focus of peace and not as a presence that produces it. His presence does not change the stillness, and it does not need to be related to. He simply rests within it, gentle and human, without intention or effort. There is no sense of him choosing to remain or actively dwelling. He remains because remaining requires nothing. His presence does not sharpen as awareness softens, and it does not fade as attention drifts. It remains steady, unaffected by perception or time. The body continues to be supported without instruction or confirmation. Sensations may soften further, becoming so faint that they no longer assemble into experience. The sense of physical form does not need to stay intact. Boundaries can blur gently without dissolving, without creating uncertainty or disorder. Muscles do not need to relax more deeply, and they do not need to hold themselves in readiness. They can remain neutral, supported without effort or attention. Breath continues quietly, without rhythm becoming noticeable or meaningful. It does not signal calm or depth. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without guidance. The nervous system does not need to remain alert. There are no cues here that would require readiness or response. Everything that must continue does so naturally, without awareness overseeing it. Awareness may thin further, becoming less centralized and less attached to sound or meaning. The sense of being present does not need to stay defined. Words may pass through awareness as gentle sound without content, or they may fade almost entirely into the background. There is no need to follow them. Nothing is lost when attention drifts or dissolves. Peace does not depend on clarity, continuity, or memory. Dwelling here does not prepare for anything else. It does not move toward resolution or transition. It simply remains unchanged and unmarked, allowing prophecy in Bethlehem to continue resting together within the same quiet field, without progression, without emphasis, without any indication that something beyond this is waiting to begin. Nothing resolves. As this dwelling continues, and there is no sense that peace has reached a fuller or more settled expression. It does not complete itself, and it does not signal that it is ready to give way to something else. Peace here is not achieved and not maintained. It simply remains because nothing disturbs it. There is no need for awareness to stay present in order for this dwelling to continue. It can thin, blur, or drift entirely without changing what holds everything steady. The night that holds prophecy in Bethlehem together remains unchanged, offering no cues that would invite movement or reflection. It does not feel expansive or enclosing. It does not suggest distance or it simply remains neutral and sufficient, allowing everything within it to rest without needing to orient or respond. There are no subtle changes to notice, no signals to interpret, because nothing changes, nothing needs to be tracked. Jesus remains present in the same calm, human way, not emphasizing peace and not embodying it as something distinct. His presence does not draw attention or require acknowledgement. It simply exists within the same stillness, unaffected by time or awareness. There is no sense of him dwelling intentionally. He simply remains, and that remaining allows everything else to remain as well. The body continues to be held without instruction. Sensations can remain faint, undefined, or absent from awareness entirely. The sense of physical form can soften without There is no need to check alignment or comfort. Support does not depend on perception. The nervous system can continue settling simply because nothing interrupts it. Breath continues quietly, without emphasis or rhythm becoming noticeable. It does not signal calm or depth. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without requiring attention. Everything that needs to happen continues on its own, without guidance or supervision. Awareness may thin further, becoming less distinct, less centralized. The sense of being present can blur without consequence. Words can fade into the background, losing clarity and meaning, while the underlying stillness remains unchanged. There is no need to listen closely. There is no need to remain oriented. Dwelling here does not move toward completion or closure. It does not prepare for something else. It simply continues, unchanged and unremarkable, allowing peace to remain exactly as it is, without progression, without resolution, without any indication that something else is meant to begin. Nothing begins as this state continues, and there is no moment where trust needs to be chosen or established. Letting go does not arrive as an action, and it does not require agreement, courage, or intention. It is not something you decide to do, and it is not something that happens because you allow it. It exists quietly as the absence of holding, the absence of the subtle effort that keeps awareness gathered, the absence of the need to remain oriented to what might happen next. Trust here has no object. It is not placed in an outcome, a promise, or a future moment. It simply remains because nothing is being managed. The night that holds prophecy in Bethlehem together remains unchanged, calm and ordinary, without anticipation or fulfillment. It does not promise arrival, and it does not suggest completion. There is no sense of movement toward birth or away from waiting. The ancient promise does not lean forward here, and Bethlehem does not come closer. Everything exists together in the same still field, where time no longer presses and sequence no longer matters. Because nothing is moving forward, there is nothing that needs to be trusted to unfold correctly. Trust exists quietly as the absence of concern, the absence of the habit of watching for what comes next. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, not modeling surrender and not inviting release. He is not in the act of letting go. He is simply not holding anything at all. There is no tension in him, no internal effort to remain calm, no posture of endurance or patience. He is not waiting for something to happen, and he is not resting after effort. He simply remains gentle and human within the world as it is. His calm does not come from acceptance or resolve. It comes from the absence of resistance, the absence of strain, the absence of the need to keep anything intact. The body can continue resting without being maintained by awareness. There is no need to monitor comfort, alignment, or position. The subtle habit of checking whether everything is alright can soften and fade without being noticed. Muscles do not need to remain prepared, and they do not need to relax deliberately. They can remain exactly as they are, neutral and supported, without attention reinforcing them. Support is already present, and it does not depend on perception or confirmation. Breath continues quietly, without becoming something to follow or regulate. It does not signal trust or surrender. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without instruction. The body knows how to continue without awareness overseeing it, and that knowing does not need to be acknowledged. Nothing here depends on vigilance. Nothing requires supervision. Everything that needs to continue does so naturally, without effort. Awareness itself can loosen without consequence. There is no need to stay connected to sound, meaning, or sequence. The sense of being a listener can soften until it feels optional rather than necessary. Words may pass through awareness as gentle sound without forming meaning, or they may fade almost entirely into the background. There is no need to follow them. There is no loss if they are forgotten. Trust here does not depend on staying awake or attentive. Letting go does not mean releasing thoughts, and it does not mean surrendering control intentionally. It is not something you do to thoughts, sensations, or awareness. It is simply what remains when nothing is being held. Thoughts, if they appear, do not need to be completed or dismissed. They can soften and dissolve on their own, unsupported by interest or concern. Awareness does not need to gather itself again afterward. It can remain loose, diffuse, unmaintained. The night remains quiet and ordinary, unchanged by the absence of holding. Prophecy and Bethlehem continue to rest together without tension, without anticipation, without arrival. There is no sense of something finally being trusted. There is only the quiet fact that nothing needs to be managed. Nothing needs to be prepared for. Nothing needs to be held in place. Jesus remains here in the same calm, human way, unaffected by the softening of awareness. His presence does not adjust to keep attention engaged. It does not guide or respond. It simply remains, steady and unremarkable, allowing trust and letting go to continue without emphasis, without direction, without progression, and without any indication that something else is meant to begin. Nothing shifts as this state continues, and there is no sense that letting go has moved further along or become more complete. Trust does not deepen here, and it does not gather itself into something that can be felt or confirmed. It remains quiet and unmarked, present without shape or boundary. There is no moment where something is released, and no moment where it is clear that holding has stopped. The absence of holding simply continues, steady enough that it no longer draws attention to itself. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains unchanged, calm and ordinary. It does not lean toward fulfillment, and it does not linger in waiting. There is no tension between what was promised and what is present. Everything exists together in the same still field, where time no longer presses forward and sequence no longer matters. Because nothing here depends on timing or outcome, the idea of trusting and unfolding becomes unnecessary. Trust exists quietly as the absence of concern, the absence of watching for what comes next. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, not demonstrating trust and not encouraging surrender. He is not in the act of releasing anything. He simply remains in a state where nothing is being held in the first place. There is no internal movement toward ease in him, and no effort required to remain calm. His presence does not come from resolve or acceptance. It exists as the absence of strain, the absence of resistance, the absence of the need to maintain anything. He's not waiting for the night to change or for something to arrive. He simply remains gentle and human within the world as it is. The body continues to rest without being supervised by awareness. There's no need to notice comfort or discomfort. No need to adjust or check alignment. The sense of physical form does not need to be assembled or remembered. Muscles do not need to stay prepared, and they do not need to relax deliberately. They can remain neutral, supported without attention, reinforcing them. Support is already present, steady and sufficient, without requiring confirmation. Breath continues quietly, without rhythm becoming something to follow or regulate. It does not signal trust or release. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without instruction. The body does not need to be watched in order to continue safely. Everything that needs to happen continues on its own, without supervision or effort. Awareness itself may loosen further, becoming less attached to sound, meaning, or sequence. The sense of being a listener can soften until it feels optional. Words may pass through awareness as gentle sound without forming meaning, or they may fade almost entirely into the background. There is no need to stay connected to them. Trust here does not depend on attention, clarity, or continuity. Thoughts, if they appear, do not need to be followed or resolved. They can arise softly and fade on their own, unsupported by interest or concern. There is no need to let go of them intentionally. Letting go is not something you do to thoughts or awareness. It is simply what remains when nothing is being held. Awareness does not need to gather itself again afterward. It can remain loose, diffuse, unmaintained. The night remains quiet and ordinary, unchanged by the absence of holding. Prophecy and Bethlehem continue to rest together without tension, without anticipation, without arrival. There is no sense of something finally being trusted. There is only the quiet continuation of a state where nothing needs to be managed, nothing needs to be prepared for, and nothing needs to be kept in place, as trust and letting go remain exactly as they are, without progression, without emphasis, and without any indication that something else is about to begin. Nothing announces that this state has shifted, and there is no sense that letting go has moved closer to completion. Trust does not advance or deepen into something more recognizable. It remains diffuse and unmarked, present without center or boundary. There is no clear moment where holding ends and release begins. The absence of holding simply continues, so steady and ordinary that it no longer needs to be noticed in order to remain. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains exactly as it has been, calm and unremarkable. It does not suggest arrival, and it does not retain the feeling of waiting. There is no tension between what was spoken long ago and what is present now. Everything exists together in the same still field, where time does not press forward and sequence no longer carries meaning. Because nothing here depends on outcome or timing. There is nothing that needs to be trusted to resolve correctly. Trust remains quietly as the absence of concern, the absence of watching. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, not as someone releasing effort and not as someone demonstrating surrender. He is not letting go as an action. He is simply not holding anything at all. There is no internal movement toward ease in him, no posture of yielding or acceptance. His calm is not maintained. It exists naturally as the absence of strain, the absence of resistance, the absence of the need to keep anything intact. He is not anticipating change, and he is not resting after effort. He simply remains gentle and human within the world as it is. The body continues to rest without needing awareness to supervise it. There's no need to notice comfort or discomfort. No need to check whether support is still present. The sense of physical form does not need to be assembled or maintained. Boundaries can soften without dissolving. Muscles do not need to prepare or release. Deliberately, they can remain neutral, supported without attention reinforcing them. Support remains steady whether it is perceived or forgotten. Breath continues quietly, without becoming something to follow or regulate. It does not signal trust or release. It simply continues, steady and sufficient. Without instruction, the body does not need to be watched for anything to continue safely. Everything that must continue does so on its own, without effort or supervision. Awareness itself may thin further, becoming less attached to sound, meaning, or continuity. The sense of being a listener can soften until it no longer feels necessary. Words may pass through awareness as gentle sound without forming meaning, or they may fade almost entirely. There is no need to remain connected to them. Trust here does not depend on clarity, attention, or memory. Thoughts, if they appear, do not need to be completed or dismissed. They can arise softly and dissolve on their own, unsupported by interest or concern. There is no need to let go of them intentionally. Letting go is not something done to thoughts or awareness. It is simply what remains when nothing is being held. Awareness does not need to gather itself again afterward. It can remain loose, diffuse, unmade. The night remains quiet and ordinary, unchanged by the continued absence of holding. Prophecy and Bethlehem continue to rest together without tension, without anticipation, without arrival. There is no sense of progress and no sense of conclusion. Trust and letting go simply continue, exactly as they are, without emphasis, without direction, and without any indication that something else is meant to begin. Nothing completes itself as this state continues, and there is no sense that letting go has reached a final or more settled form. Trust does not resolve into certainty, and it does not arrive as reassurance. It remains open and unmarked, present without boundary or emphasis. There is no moment where it becomes clear that something has been released. There is simply the continued absence of holding, so even and steady that it no longer registers as a condition at all. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains unchanged, calm and ordinary. It does not lean toward fulfillment, and it does not linger in expectation. There's no movement toward arrival, and no sense of remaining behind. Everything exists together in the same still field, where time does not press forward and sequence no longer matters, because nothing here depends on outcome or timing. There is nothing that needs to be trusted to unfold correctly. Trust exists quietly as the absence of concern, the absence of the habit of watching. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, not completing an act of surrender and not resting after effort. He's not letting go as a process. He's simply not holding anything in the first place. There is no internal shift toward ease in him, and no posture of release. His calm does not come from resolution or acceptance. It exists as the absence of strain, the absence of resistance, the absence of the need to keep anything intact. He is not anticipating change, and he is not preparing for what comes next. He simply remains gentle and human within the world as it is. The body continues to be supported without supervision. There is no need to sense where support comes from or how it is maintained. Sensations may fade further into the background, becoming indistinct or absent from awareness altogether. The sense of physical form does not need to be assembled or remembered. Boundaries can soften without this. Muscles do not need to prepare or release deliberately. They can remain neutral, supported without attention reinforcing them. Breath continues quietly, without rhythm becoming something to follow. It does not signal trust or depth. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without instruction. The body does not need to be watched in order to continue safely. Everything that must continue does so naturally, without effort or supervision. Awareness itself may thin to the point where the sense of being present becomes vague or optional. Words can pass through awareness without forming meaning, or they can fade entirely into the background. There is no need to stay connected to sound or language. Trust does not depend on attention, clarity, or continuity. It remains intact even as awareness loosens or drifts away. Letting go does not prepare for something else. It does not transition or resolve. It simply continues as the absence of effort, the absence of holding, the absence of the need to remain oriented. The night remains quiet and ordinary. Prophecy in Bethlehem continued to rest together without tension, without anticipation, without arrival. And within this unchanging stillness, trust and letting go remain exactly as they are, without progression, without emphasis, without any indication that something new is meant to begin. Nothing changes as this state continues, and there is no signal that something deeper has begun. Deep sleep does not arrive as an event, and it does not replace what came before. It is not entered, and it is not fallen into. It simply remains as what is already here when nothing is being held together. When awareness no longer needs to stay gathered or oriented, there is no threshold to cross and no moment where wakefulness ends. There is only the continued thinning of definition, so gradual and even that it does not need to be noticed or understood. The night that holds prophecy in Bethlehem together remains exactly as it has been, quiet and ordinary, without atmosphere changing or deepening. It does not darken in a meaningful way, and it does not soften into something symbolic. It simply remains a night, unmarked and sufficient, wide enough that nothing presses forward. There are no sounds that require interpretation, no movements that would invite response, because nothing here asks for attention. Attention no longer needs to remain intact. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, not moving toward sleep and not withdrawing from awareness. He is not entering rest as a process, and he is not passing into unconsciousness. He simply remains in a state where nothing is being maintained. There is no posture of effort in him, no holding of attention, no interaction taking place. His presence does not need to be sensed clearly. It does not fade as awareness thins, and it does not sharpen when attention briefly returns. It remains steady and human, unchanged as perception softens and meaning dissolves. The body continues to be supported without supervision or confirmation. There is no need to notice where support comes from or how it is maintained. Sensations may become so faint that they no longer register as sensations at all, or they may drift in and out of awareness without forming experience. The sense of physical form can blur gently, without dissolving and without creating uncertainty. There is no need to know where the body is or how it rests. Weight does not need to be felt. Contact does not need to be registered. Support remains present, even when awareness no longer checks for it. Muscles do not need to relax further, and they do not need to remain tense. They can remain exactly as they are, neutral and unmaintained, unaffected by attention or time. There is no need to scan the body, no need to release anything deliberately, no need to correct posture or alignment. The nervous system does not need instruction. It continues settling simply because nothing interrupts it. Nothing calls it back to readiness. Nothing requires response. Breath continues quietly, sometimes faintly perceived, sometimes not perceived at all. It does not become slow or deep in a way that needs to be noticed. It does not signal depth, calm, or sleep. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without guidance. There is no need to follow it or regulate it. The body knows how to continue without awareness overseeing it, and that knowing does not need to be acknowledged or trusted consciously. Awareness itself may thin until it no longer feels like a center from which experience is observed. The sense of listening can fade until it becomes optional or absent altogether. Words may pass through awareness as sound without meaning, or they may fade entirely, leaving only a diffuse sense of being that does not need to define itself. There is no need to stay connected to language or sound. There is no consequence to drifting beyond it, and nothing needs to bring attention back. Moments may pass without being registered as moments. There is no sense of time moving forward, and no sense of time stopping. The idea of time simply becomes less relevant, less necessary. There is no before that needs to be remembered, and no after that needs to be anticipated. Everything that needs to continue does so without awareness tracking it. Deep sleep here is not something that happens to you, and it is not something you fall into. It does not feel heavy or dark. It does not arrive as unconsciousness. It simply continues as the absence of effort, the absence of holding, the absence of the need to remain aware. Nothing announces it. Nothing confirms it. It remains quietly, evenly, without boundary or marker. Jesus remains here in the same quiet, unchanged way, unaffected by the thinning of awareness and the fading of attention. His presence does not guide and does not respond. It does not conclude anything and does not prepare anything else. It simply remains steady and human, allowing the state of deep sleep to continue exactly as it is, without progression, without emphasis, without any indication that something else is forming or waiting to begin. Nothing changes as this state continues, and there is no sense that deep sleep has become heavier or more complete. It does not deepen in layers, and it does not gather itself into something that can be felt or identified. It remains exactly as it has been, quiet and unmarked, present without needing to be noticed. There is no internal signal that awareness has moved farther away or settled more fully. The absence of effort simply continues, steady enough that it no longer needs to register as a condition at all. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains unchanged, calm and ordinary. It does not darken or soften further, and it does not take on symbolic meaning. It simply remains a night, wide and still, without movement that would invite attention. There are no sounds to interpret, no subtle changes to follow, because nothing here asks for awareness. Awareness no longer needs to stay intact. It can loosen or fade without consequence. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, not asleep and not awake in any defined sense. He is not transitioning into rest, and he's not emerging from it. He simply remains in a state where nothing is being maintained. There is no inner activity in him, no posture of awareness, no effort to remain calm or present. His presence does not depend on perception. It does not need to be remembered. It remains steady and human, unchanged as attention thins and meaning dissolves. The body continues to be supported without supervision. Sensations may be faint, diffuse, or absent from awareness altogether. The sense of physical form does not need to be assembled or maintained. There is no requirement to know where the body is or how it rests. Boundaries can soften gently, without dissolving, and without creating uncertainty. Support remains present, whether it is noticed or forgotten. Muscles do not need to relax further, and they do not need to hold themselves ready. They can remain neutral, supported without attention, reinforcing them. There is no need to scan for tension or comfort. The nervous system does not need instruction or reassurance. It continues settling simply because nothing interrupts it, nothing calls it back to alertness, nothing requires response. Breath continues quietly, without rhythm becoming something to follow or regulate. It does not signal depth or calm. It does not need to be trusted or guided. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without awareness overseeing it. The body knows how to continue without being watched, and that knowing does not need to be acknowledged or confirmed. Awareness itself may thin until the sense of being present becomes vague or optional. The idea of listening can soften and fade without consequence. Words may pass through awareness as distant sound without forming meaning, or they may fade almost entirely, leaving only a diffuse sense of being that does not need to define itself. There is no need to stay connected to language or sound. Nothing is lost when attention drifts beyond them. Moments may pass without being registered as moments. There is no sense of losing time, and no need to recover it. Time does not move forward in a way that requires noticing, and it does not stop in a way that needs to be marked. The idea of sequence becomes less relevant, less necessary. Everything that needs to continue does so without awareness tracking it. Deep sleep here does not resolve into silence or darkness. It does not arrive anywhere. It simply remains as the absence of effort, the absence of holding, the absence of the need to remain aware. There is no moment where it becomes clear that sleep has taken over. There is no boundary between being aware and not being aware that needs to be crossed. Jesus remains here in the same quiet, unchanged way, unaffected by the thinning of awareness and the fading of attention. His presence does not guide or respond. It does not signal safety or rest. It simply remains steady and human, allowing this state of deep sleep to continue exactly as it is, without progression, without emphasis, without any indication that something else is about to begin. Nothing announces a change as this state continues, and there is no sense that deep sleep has moved further away from awareness or closer to it. It does not deepen into something heavier, and it does not thin into something lighter. It remains evenly present, quiet and unmarked, without contrast or emphasis. There is no point where awareness slips beyond reach, and no point where it returns. The absence of effort simply continues, steady enough that it no longer needs to be noticed in order to remain. The night that holds prophecy in Bethlehem together remains exactly as it has been, ordinary and still. It does not become darker in a way that carries meaning, and it does not soften into intimacy. It simply remains a night, wide enough that nothing presses forward and nothing pulls away. There are no sounds that require interpretation, no movements that would invite attention, because nothing here asks to be noticed. Awareness does not need to stay available. It can thin, blur, or drift without consequence. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, not entering sleep and not remaining awake in any defined sense. He is not transitioning, and he's not holding awareness in place. He simply remains in a state where nothing is being maintained. There's no inner posture of rest and no posture of vigilance. His presence does not need to be sensed or remembered. It remains steady and human, unchanged as perception softens and meaning dissolves. The body continues to be supported without supervision. Sensations may no longer register clearly, or they may fade entirely from awareness without being noticed. The sense of physical form does not need to be assembled or maintained. Boundaries can soften until they are no longer relevant, without dissolving and without creating uncertainty. There is no need to know where the body is or how it rests. Support remains present, whether it is perceived or forgotten. Muscles do not need to relax further, and they do not need to remain tense. They can remain neutral, supported without effort or attention. There is no need to scan the body or release anything deliberately. The nervous system does not need reassurance or instruction. It continues settling simply because nothing interrupts it. Nothing signals readiness. Nothing requires response. Breath continues quietly, without rhythm becoming something to follow or regulate. It does not signal depth, calm, or sleep. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without awareness overseeing it. Sometimes it may be faintly perceived, and sometimes it may not be perceived at all. There is no difference between these states. Nothing depends on noticing. Awareness itself may thin to the point where the sense of being present becomes vague or optional. The idea of listening can soften and fade without consequence. Words may pass through awareness as distant sound without meaning, or they may dissolve entirely into the background. There is no need to remain connected to language or sound. Nothing essential is lost when attention drifts beyond them. Moments can pass without being registered as moments. There is no sense of time moving forward and no sense of time stopping. The idea of sequence becomes less relevant, less necessary. There is no before that needs to be remembered, and no after that needs to be anticipated. Everything that must continue does so without awareness tracking it. Deep sleep here does not gather itself into a final stillness, and it does not close around awareness. It remains open and unmarked, present without boundary or center. It does not arrive anywhere, and it does not resolve into darkness or silence. It simply continues as the absence of effort, the absence of holding, the absence of the need to remain aware. Jesus remains here in the same quiet, unchanged way, unaffected by the thinning of awareness and the fading of attention. His presence does not guide, does not respond, and does not conclude anything. It simply remains steady and human, allowing this state of deep sleep to continue exactly as it is, without progression, without emphasis, without any indication that something else is meant to begin. Nothing completes itself as this state continues, and there is no sense of having reached the deepest point of anything. Deep sleep here does not culminate, and it does not close around awareness. It does not arrive as a final stillness, or gather itself into a form that could be recognized. It remains open and unmarked, present without boundary or emphasis. There is no moment that could be identified as fully asleep, and no moment that could be identified as still awake. There is simply the continued absence of effort, the continued absence of holding, the continued absence of the need to remain aware of what is happening. The night that holds prophecy in Bethlehem together remains exactly as it has been, quiet and ordinary. It does not recede into darkness or soften into distance. It does not become symbolic or intimate. It simply remains a night, sufficient and unmoving, wide enough that nothing presses inward and nothing pulls outward. There are no changes to notice and no cues to follow, because nothing here requires orientation. Orientation fades without being noticed. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, unchanged and unremarkable. He is not asleep in a way that could be contrasted with wakefulness, and he is not awake in a way that requires awareness. He simply remains in a state where nothing is being maintained. There is no posture, no interaction, no movement of attention. His presence does not depend on perception. It remains steady and human, unaffected by whether awareness is faint, diffuse, or absent altogether. The body continues to be supported without any need for confirmation. Sensations may be entirely absent from awareness, or they may exist only as indistinct impressions that do not form experience. The sense of physical form does not need to be present. Boundaries can soften beyond relevance without dissolving. There is no need to notice weight, contact, or position. Support remains present even when awareness no longer registers the body at all. Muscles remain neutral, neither holding nor releasing. There is no need to check whether they are relaxed or tense. There is no need to correct posture or alignment. The nervous system does not require reassurance. It continues settling simply because nothing interrupts it. Nothing calls it back to alertness. Nothing asks it to respond. Everything that needs to continue does so quietly, without supervision. Breath continues as part of what remains, without rhythm becoming noticeable and without movement forming experience. It does not mark time or depth. It does not signal calm or safety. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without instruction. There is no need to follow it, and no difference whether it is noticed or not. Nothing depends on perception for continuation. Awareness itself may thin to the point of near absence. The sense of being present does not need to stay intact. If awareness appears at all, it does so faintly and without center. It does not gather into observation or memory. Moments can pass without being registered as moments. There is no sense of losing time and no need to recover it. Time does not move forward in a way that requires noticing, and it does not stop in a way that needs to be marked. Words may no longer be heard as words, or they may fade entirely into the background, leaving only the underlying quiet that does not require interpretation. There is no need to remain connected to sound or meaning. Nothing essential depends on listening. Nothing needs to bring attention back. Deep sleep here does not resolve into silence or darkness. It does not arrive anywhere. It does not replace awareness with absence. It simply continues as the absence of effort, the absence of holding, the absence of the need to remain aware. There is no transition to track, and no boundary to cross. Everything that remains does so evenly, without emphasis or marker. Jesus remains here in the same quiet, unchanged way, not concluding anything and not preparing anything else. His presence does not guide and does not respond. It simply remains, steady and human, allowing this state of deep sleep to continue exactly as it is, without progression, without emphasis, without any indication that something else is forming or waiting to begin. Nothing begins as this state continues, and there is no internal signal that awareness has crossed into something else. Beyond awareness is not entered, and it is not reached. It does not replace sleep, and it does not follow it in sequence. It simply remains as what is already here when even the faint sense of noticing no longer needs to stay intact. There is no moment where awareness disappears, and no moment where it remains. There is only the continued thinning of definition. So even in gentle, the idea of awareness itself no longer needs to be present. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains exactly as it has been, quiet and ordinary, without atmosphere, shifting, or meaning deepening. It does not recede into abstraction, and it does not come closer into intimacy. It simply remains a night, sufficient and unmoving, wide enough that nothing presses forward. There are no sounds to interpret, no movements to follow, because nothing here depends on being perceived. Perception no longer needs to remain available. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, not as someone being noticed, and not as someone remembered. He is not an image held in mind, and he is not a thought sustained by attention. He simply remains steady and human, without requiring awareness to acknowledge him. His presence does not fade when attention dissolves completely, and it does not sharpen when awareness briefly flickers. It remains unchanged, independent of perception, unaffected by being known or forgotten. The body continues to exist without assembling experience. Sensations do not gather into feeling, and form does not assemble into shape. There is no need to know where the body is or how it rests. Support continues without awareness confirming it. Everything that must continue does so quietly, without supervision, without recognition. The idea of a body does not need to be present for the body to remain. Breath continues as part of what remains, without rhythm becoming experience, and without movement forming meaning. It does not mark time or depth. It does not signal rest or wakefulness. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without instruction. There is no need to trust it or follow it. Nothing depends on noticing. Awareness, if it appears at all, does so faintly and without center. It does not gather into observation or memory. It does not create sequence. Moments can pass without being registered as moments. There is no sense of losing time and no need to recover it. Time does not move forward in a way that requires noticing, and it does not stop in a way that needs to be marked. The idea of time becomes less relevant, less necessary. Beyond awareness does not feel vast or empty. It does not feel like nothingness, and it does not feel like something else. It is unmarked and neutral, without contrast or boundary. There is no inside and no outside to distinguish. There is no direction to move toward or away from. Everything simply remains without needing to be known. The night remains quiet and ordinary, unchanged by the absence of awareness. Prophecy and Bethlehem continue to rest together without sequence, without anticipation, without arrival. There is no sense of promise unfolding and no sense of completion. Everything exists together in the same calm field, where movement and stillness are no longer different. Jesus remains here in the same quiet, unchanged way, not concluding anything and not preparing anything else. His presence does not guide and does not respond. It simply remains steady and human, allowing this state beyond awareness to continue exactly as it is, without progression, without emphasis, without any indication that something else is forming or waiting to begin. Nothing here needs to be maintained. Nothing needs to be released. There is no effort occurring and no effort required to stop effort. The idea of letting go is no longer relevant, because there is nothing being held and no one holding it. What remains does so quietly, without structure, without definition, without the need to be perceived. This continues evenly and without marker, beyond awareness, beyond noticing, beyond the need to remain present in any particular way. Nothing shifts as this state continues, and there is no sense that awareness has moved farther away or thinned more completely. Beyond awareness does not deepen, and it does not dissolve into something else. It remains without outline, without contrast, without a quality that could be identified or compared. There is no reference point from which absence could be measured, and no position from which presence could be confirmed. What remains does not need awareness in order to remain, and so awareness no longer needs to stay intact. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains exactly as it has been, quiet and ordinary, unaffected by perception or its absence. It does not recede when awareness fades, and it does not return when attention briefly flickers. It exists without depending on being sensed, without being held in mind, without being remembered. There are no features to recognize, and no space to orient within, because nothing here requires perception. Perception no longer needs to stay available in any form. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, not as an image sustained by thought, and not as a memory revisited by awareness. He is not something to attend to or keep in mind. He simply remains, steady and human, without requiring awareness to contain him. His presence does not weaken when attention dissolves completely, and it does not intensify when awareness briefly returns. It remains unchanged, independent of perception, unaffected by being noticed or forgotten. The body continues to exist without assembling experience. Sensations do not organize themselves into feeling. The sense of physical form does not need to be present or absent. There is no requirement to know whether the body is near or far, heavy or light. Support continues without awareness confirming it. Everything that must continue does so quietly, without supervision, without needing to be held together by perception. Breath continues as part of what remains, without rhythm becoming noticeable, and without movement forming experience. It does not mark time, and it does not indicate rest or wakefulness. It simply continues because it does, steady and sufficient, without instruction, without attention, without trust needing to be placed in it. There is no need to follow it, and no loss if it is never noticed again. Awareness, if it appears at all, does so without center and without continuity. It does not gather into observation or memory. It does not create a sense of sequence. Moments pass without being marked as moments. There is no sense of time moving forward and no sense of time stopping. The idea of time simply becomes unnecessary, without needing to disappear or resolve. Beyond awareness does not feel empty or full, dark or light, present or absent. It does not feel like nothingness, and it does not feel like something else. It remains neutral and unmarked, without qualities that would require experience to validate them. There is no inside and no outside to distinguish, no distance to collapse or expand. Everything simply remains without needing to be known. Nothing here needs to be maintained, and nothing needs to be released. There is no effort occurring, and no effort required to stop effort. The idea of letting go no longer applies, because there is nothing being held and no one holding it. What remains does so quietly, without structure, without definition, without the need to be perceived. Jesus remains here in the same quiet, unchanged way, not concluding anything and not preparing anything else. His presence does not signal continuation or ending. It simply remains, allowing this state beyond awareness to continue exactly as it is, without emphasis, without progression, without any indication that something else is forming, arriving, or waiting to begin. This continues evenly, without marker or boundary, beyond awareness, beyond noticing, beyond the need to remain present in any particular way. Nothing opens or closes as this continues, and there is no sense that anything is shifted further away or drawn nearer. Beyond awareness does not thin or deepen. It does not become clearer, and it does not dissolve. It remains without definition, without boundary, without a quality that could be identified as more or less. There is no place from which this state could be observed, and no need for such a place to exist. What remains does not require awareness to be complete, and so the idea of completeness no longer applies. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains exactly as it has been, quiet and ordinary, untouched by whether anything is perceived or remembered. It does not exist as scenery, and it does not exist as meaning. It simply remains sufficient and unmoving, without needing to be known. There is no distance to sense, and no closeness to register. Orientation has no function here, and so it no longer occurs. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, not as a figure recalled or imagined, not as a presence felt or recognized. He is not held in memory, and he is not sustained by attention. He simply remains steady and human, without requiring awareness to acknowledge him. His presence does not come and go. It does not depend on perception. It remains unchanged even when the idea of perception no longer applies. The body continues without forming experience. Sensation does not gather into feeling, and form does not assemble into shape. There is no need to know whether the body is resting or moving, present or absent. Support continues without awareness confirming it. Everything that must continue does so quietly, without supervision, without recognition. The idea of the body does not need to be present for the body to remain. Breath continues as part of what remains, without movement becoming experience, and without rhythm marking time. It does not indicate rest or wakefulness. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without instruction, without attention. There is no need to trust it, no consequence if it is never noticed again. Awareness does not need to return, and it does not need to disappear. If it appears faintly, it does so without continuity and without center. It does not gather into observation. It does not create sequence or memory. Moments do not register as moments. There is no sense of loss, and no need for recovery. Nothing essential depends on continuity or presence. Beyond awareness does not feel like rest or like sleep. It does not feel like silence or darkness. It does not feel like something has ended or something has begun. It remains neutral and unmarked, without qualities that would require experience to validate them. There is no movement forward and no movement inward. There is simply no movement at all. Nothing here needs to be held in place. Nothing needs to be released. There is no effort occurring and no effort required to stop effort. The idea of letting go no longer applies, because there is nothing being held, no one holding it. What remains does so quietly, without structure, without definition, without the need to be known. Jesus remains here in the same quiet, unchanged way, not signaling continuation and not suggesting closure. His presence does not guide and does not conclude. It simply remains, allowing this state beyond awareness to continue exactly as it is, without emphasis, without progression, without any indication that something else is approaching or waiting to take shape. Nothing completes itself as this continues, and there is no sense of having reached the far edge of anything. Beyond awareness does not culminate, and it does not dissolve into something else. It remains open and unmarked, present without boundary, without contrast, without a quality that could be identified as final or complete. There is no moment where the state could be said to arrive fully, and no moment where it could be said to end. It simply continues, without signaling continuation. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains exactly as it has been, quiet and ordinary, unaffected by whether anything is perceived or remembered. It does not become distant or abstract, and it does not draw closer into intimacy. It simply remains sufficient and unmoving, without requiring perception to validate it. There is no orientation here, no sense of direction or placement. The idea of location no longer needs to exist. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, not as someone being noticed and not as someone remembered. He is not held in mind, and he is not maintained by awareness. He simply remains steady and human, without dependence on perception. His presence does not fade when attention dissolves completely, and it does not return when awareness briefly flickers. It remains unchanged. Independent of being known, the body continues to exist without assembling experience. Sensation does not form into feeling, and form does not need to be present or absent. There is no need to know whether the body rests or moves, breathes or pauses. Support continues without awareness, confirming it. Everything that must continue does so quietly, without supervision, without recognition. The idea of the body no longer needs to be present for the body to remain. Breath continues as part of what remains, without rhythm becoming noticeable and without movement forming experience. It does not mark time or depth. It does not signal rest or wakefulness. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without instruction or trust needing to be placed in it. There is no need to follow it, and no loss if it is never noticed again. Awareness does not need to be present, and it does not need to be absent. If it appears faintly, it does so without center and without continuity. It does not gather into observation or memory. Moments do not register as moments. There is no sense of time passing and no sense of time stopping. There is simply no requirement for time to be known. Beyond awareness does not resolve into silence or darkness. It does not become sleep or nothingness. It does not feel like something is ended or something is begun. It remains neutral and unmarked, without qualities that would require experience to confirm them. There is no movement toward closure and no preparation for what comes next. Nothing here needs to be maintained. Nothing needs to be released. There is no effort occurring, and no effort required to stop effort. The idea of letting go no longer applies, because there is nothing being held, no one holding it. What remains does so quietly, without structure, without definition, without the need to be known. Jesus remains here in the same quiet, unchanged way, not concluding anything and not preparing anything else. His presence does not signal ending or continuation. It simply remains, allowing the state beyond awareness to continue exactly as it is, without emphasis, without progression, without any indication that something else is forming, arriving, or waiting to begin. Nothing shifts into an ending as this continues, and there is no sense that something is about to conclude. Language itself begins to loosen, not by stopping, but by thinning, as if words no longer need to hold meaning in order to remain. Sound becomes presence rather than message. What is heard does not need to be followed, and what is not heard does not need to be replaced. Everything that remains does so without asking for attention. The night that holds prophecy and Bethlehem together remains exactly as it has been, quiet and ordinary, without atmosphere changing or meaning resolving. It does not gather itself into fulfillment, and it does not recede into distance. It simply remains, sufficient and unmoving, without requiring perception to confirm it. There is no sense of sequence left to complete, and no sense of arrival left to notice. Jesus remains present within this same stillness, not as someone being sensed and not as someone remembered. His presence no longer needs to be distinguished from the quiet around it. It does not stand apart, and it does not dissolve. It simply remains as part of what is steady and human, without emphasis or definition. There is no need to recognize him in order for his presence to remain intact. The body continues without assembling experience. Sensation does not gather into feeling. Form does not assemble into shape. Support continues without awareness, confirming it. There is no need to know whether the body is present or absent, resting or moving. Everything that must continue does so quietly, without supervision, without recognition. Breath continues without rhythm becoming noticeable and without movement forming experience. It does not mark time or depth. It simply continues, steady and sufficient, without guidance. There is no need to follow it, and no need to trust it. Nothing depends on awareness remaining intact. Awareness itself no longer needs to be present as a center. If it appears at all, it does so faintly, without continuity, without forming observation or memory. Words may still arise as sound, but meaning no longer needs to attach to them. Silence does not contrast with sound. Both are simply part of what remains. Time no longer moves forward in a way that needs to be noticed, and it does not pause in a way that needs to be marked. Moments do not gather into duration. There is no before to remember and no after to anticipate. Everything exists without sequence, without direction, without the need to be known. Nothing here prepares for a final moment. Nothing signals closure. The sense of remaining does not depend on awareness staying present. Language continues only as long as it needs to, growing lighter, less structured, less distinct, without announcing its own fading. This continues, softly and evenly, without emphasis, without resolution, without any indication that something else is meant to follow. Nothing gathers itself into a final moment, and there is no sense that this is finishing or completing anything. Language thins further, not by disappearing, but by losing the need to form meaning. Sound becomes indistinguishable from silence, and silence does not feel like an absence. What remains does not require attention to continue, and it does not change when attention fades. The night that holds prophecy in Bethlehem together no longer needs to be recognized as night. It does not feel near or far. It does not hold promise or memory. It simply remains, without shape, without context, without any need to be known. There is no movement within it, and no stillness to contrast with movement. Everything rests without resting. Jesus remains, not as a figure, not as a presence to be sensed, but without separation from what remains. There is no distinction that needs to be maintained. Nothing identifies him, and nothing loses him. What remains does not depend on recognition, and it does not disappear when recognition is gone. The body continues without forming experience. Breath continues without forming rhythm. Support continues without being felt. There is no need to know that any of this is happening. It happens without awareness, without observation, without memory. Time does not move forward, and it does not pause. It simply no longer needs to be accounted for. Moments do not gather. Awareness does not gather. Nothing collects into meaning or sequence. What remains has no edge and no center. There is no inside and no outside. Nothing arrives. Nothing leaves. And this continues.